FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 5 o'clock, David Cameron has told LBC he's sure that the findings of the Iraq war inquiry will be published before the end of this year. The chairman of the inquiry, Sir John Chilcot, says it's been delayed until after May's general election to allow more time for those criticised to respond. The Prime Minister's told LBC it's disappointing it's taking so long, but insists the panel must be given the time they need.
They can't give me a deadline. They say it will be after the election, but they have to go through proper processes. Particularly when people are criticised in a report, they have to have the chance to be able to respond. That's only fair and legal. And so they can't put a deadline on it for me, but I'm sure that, we will see it this year.
Former Prime Minister Tony Blair insists he is not the reason for the delay. Ian's been speaking to Rose Gentle, whose 19-year-old son Gordon was killed while serving in Iraq. She says the report should come out this side of the election.
The families just feel that we're totally getting let down. We don't know what's happening. I'm not getting any explanation why it keeps getting put back every time onto the net is put back again. We really need the answers. We're just feeling that it's getting shoved aside now.
New claims have been made of a sighting of a murdered 8-year-old boy on the day he went missing in London in 1981. The father of Vishal Mehrotra says his son was kidnapped and killed by an alleged Westminster paedophile ring. Jill Exelby, who died over Christmas, claims she saw Vishal on a train that afternoon. She passed her recollections on to her granddaughter, Paige, who's been speaking to LBC.
She was watching this little boy running up and down the train, very excited, feet up on the chairs, constantly running about, smiling, laughing, and she noticed the bright white trainers with a blue flash.
A British soldier has been charged with sexually abusing a 6-year-old girl in Austria. The 30-year-old, who's based in Colchester, is accused of breaking into a family home in the Alps in November. The High Court has ruled that Community Secretary Eric Pickles has unlawfully discriminated against Romani gypsies wanting pitches in the Greenbelt. A judge says both human rights and equality laws have been breached by Mr Pickles and his department, calling in cases which would normally be considered by his planning inspectors. Workers on the Docklands Light Railway in London are to go on strike next week. Members of the RMT union will walk out for 48 hours from 4 a.m. on Wednesday in a row over terms and conditions. Transport bosses say talks are continuing to try to avert the action. Unemployment has fallen to its lowest level in more than 6 years. 58,000 fewer people were out of work in the 3 months to November, taking the jobless rates to 1.91 million. At the same time, wages are continuing to grow more quickly than inflation. And the American ambassador to the UK has insisted on LBC the US will not pay a bill of more than £9 million in unpaid congestion charges in London. Transport for London says in total embassies owe £87 million. Ambassador Matthew Barzan says it's a tax and therefore they're exempt.
We had an agreement with each other coming out of the Vienna Convention where we said, look, we aren't businesses. Countries can afford to have big missions. We're building a huge 10-story thing across the river in Wandsworth. And the reason we're able to make these investments is because we treat them specially. We treat them not as businesses and therefore not subject to the same tax as business would be.
In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed up 107 points at 67.28. And LBC weather, light rain or sleet this evening for London and the southeast, which should die away by midnight. Lows of -2 Celsius, becoming mostly dry but cloudy by later tonight across the UK, but a few mist and freezing fog patches. Tomorrow becoming dry and cloudy but cold and highs of 5 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
I'm Joanne Webb. In the LBC Travel Centre, absolute chaos around East London with the North Circular Road being closed northbound from the A12 to the M11. It's because of an accident. If you can avoid the area, please do so. All the surrounding routes are really bad. The A12 and the A13 suffering, but all around Leytonstone, Wanstead and Epping Forest. And in Epping, the High Street's been closed. But that's a separate accident. On the Hertfordshire stretch of the M25, hardly moving at all clockwise from junction 22 at London Colney to junction 26 at Waltham Abbey because of an accident where 2 lanes are closed. On the Surrey stretch of the M25, very slow anti-clockwise for the Cobham services. That's the service station between junctions 10 and 9, the A3 to the Leatherhead, and that's because a tanker has broken down on the exit slip road. In Kent, Operation Stack is taking place, so the M20 is closed heading towards the coast between junctions 8 at Leeds Castle and 9 at Ashford. There are now delays all the way back to junction 5 at the A20. And in Worcestershire, there's only one lane open on the M42 southbound between junctions 1 at Bromsgrove and with the M5 as causing queues all the way back to Junction 3. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Work smarter with a free 30-day trial.
Hello and welcome aboard your East Coast train. Calling it, send minutes via email, work upon spreadsheet, accept online meeting invite, before finally arriving at selfie sitting in first class.
With complimentary Wi-Fi on all East Coast trains for first-class travellers and 15 minutes free in standard, we're pulling out all the stops to make you feel at home. So next time you need to travel, why not try it the East Coast Trains way? Book today at eastcoast.co.uk.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Ian Dale at Drive. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
Hello, very good afternoon. Great to have you with us. I'm Ian Dale at Drive, leading Britain's conversation every weekday between 4 and 8 here on LBC. The webcams are on. lbc.co.uk is where you need to go. Why have we switched the webcams on? Because we have Ed Balls, the Shadow Chancellor, with us. He's here to take your calls throughout the next hour. You can call in on anything you like. 0345 6060 973. Labour's plans for the economy. Ed Balls' trip to Washington, where he was there at the same time as David Cameron. Coincidence or not? The mansion tax, maybe. The surge of the Greens. And what about these TV debates? Lots to talk about. 0345 6060 973. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back.
Good to be back. Talking to the nation on LBC.
You are talking to the nation on LBC. It's been a very interesting few weeks. The first few weeks of the new year. It's the first call balls of the new year.
Of course.
Are you raring to go? Looking forward to the election? Geared up already?
There are some politicians who don't like elections, but I've always been one of the politicians who really enjoy them. Getting out on the stump, talking to people, travelling around the country. I was in Aberdeen yesterday, and I'm in Cornwall tomorrow. So It's not quite Land's End to John O'Groats, but pretty much.
I mean, how much did you enjoy the last election? Because, I mean, you didn't get a huge majority at the end of it in your seat, did you? Was it a bit sort of Alex Ferguson would say squeaky bum time?
Well, I think I went to 42 different marginal constituencies through the general election. I thought it was my job. I was the education, the schools and the children's secretary to get around the country. So I went all over, and the Tories threw a huge amount of money at my constituency, lots of Lord Ashcroft money. David Cameron came lots and lots of times, and George Osborne, but I won and they lost.
You did. Right, let's go to the calls without further ado. Matt is in Lewisham. Hello, Matt.
Hello. Hi, Ed. How are you doing?
Hi, Matt.
Ed, I wonder if I could ask you a bit of advice. As somebody who, like
it
Ian
depends
Dale,
what about, Matt.
As someone who, like Ian, tries to spend a lot of time defending the political establishment from the sort of charge that everyone's the same, they're all in it, they're all on the make, they're all on the take. I spend a lot of my time trying to defend politicians and trying to defend Parliament, and that hasn't been easy. Through the expenses scandal and through scandal after scandal, I've kept plugging away and trying to defend it. But in the light of the political establishment suppressing the Chilcot report today, and once again flying fully in the face of public opinion, how would you suggest I keep on defending the political establishment?
Well, I think like you, Matt, I'd like to see this report published today. I'd rather it was published last year. I think it's really hugely frustrating, not just for you, but for elected politicians as well, that 6 years after this review was set up, it's still not been published. And
you were in the cabinet when it was set up, weren't you?
I was in the cabinet when it was set up, and it's been going on for 6 years. And we had a view when we were in government that the review shouldn't start until after combat troops had left. David Cameron today in the House of Commons was saying, well, maybe it's Labour's fault, therefore, that it was delayed. But Matt, it's been 6 years, and that should be long enough. And we were hearing today from Min Campbell that he doesn't think there's any individual responsible and blocking it, and there's been some illness on the Commission as well, but we ought to be able to do these things in a quicker way, because I think you're right, trust in democracy means that when things have happened and they need to be investigated, they should be objective but also speedy. If the appearances is being brushed under the carpet, that's not good enough. So I'm with you, and to be honest, Matt, it's not politicians who are trying to slow this down at all.
So let's get this clear. The Labour Party has no problem with this coming out before the election, because that seems to be one of the points that has been made. Well, it could, because Labour in power at the time. Clearly, I don't think any of the current shadow cabinet was in the cabinet at the time of 2003, so it's a whole different generation. So you would be quite happy for this report to be published in the next couple of weeks?
Not only do we have no problem, we would prefer it if it was published before, so that people like Matt wouldn't feel frustrated by the way in which the broader political process is working. And in the end, you've got to be able to defend decisions, learn from decisions. This is quite a long time ago, but it still has a direct impact upon Britain's standing in the world and our foreign policy. Of course, it was something that I didn't vote for, although I've said if I was in Parliament at that time I would have done. It's something that David Cameron did vote for because he was a Conservative MP at the time, and all of us should be scrutinised and discuss our views on these things when they come out. It's obviously frustrating. It's going to happen after the election.
I mean, I've read Alistair Campbell's diaries. Clearly, you and he had a few issues during all that period, but you were very close to the centre then. You obviously were sort of very close to Gordon Brown, who was Chancellor at the time. Did you see anything that you thought, well, we should have done this differently in terms of the decision-making process? Because that's what Chilcot's going to be looking into. Well,
I was at the centre of government from a Treasury point of view. Our job at the time was really financing, so it would be silly of me to try and claim that I was involved in the political foreign policy strategic discussion, and I don't think that Gordon Brown was hugely either, although he was part of the cabinet, which obviously oversaw that and has always defended what happened. I talked publicly and about some of the ways issues were handled at certain points. I thought that we ought to have spent longer at the time seeking support for a second resolution, and I think that I've said on the record that that when a decision was made to try and pin the blame for the absence of a second resolution on President Chirac and the French government, I thought that was not really quite where the debate was. But in terms of the big substance, it would be wrong of me to kind of claim I was either on the inside of it or to defend it. But as I said, as a Labour MP, if I'd been a member of the Parliament at the time, on the basis of the information we had and what we were being told, I would have voted for it. I think in retrospect it was a mistake, but I'm not sure it would have been mistaken on the information given to vote for it at the time.
Do you think Tony Blair gets a rough deal from a lot of people on this? Because, I mean, after all, he did win Labour 3 elections, but whenever we talk about Iraq, whenever Tony Blair's name comes up, we get deluged with people saying he's committed war crimes, it was an illegal war, yet no one can actually point to the law that he's supposed to have broken. Do you think he gets a rough deal on this?
Well, look, I think all this talk of war crimes and illegality is just the kind of smears you get in politics. And you're right that Tony Blair did some very, very important things in our country. But I also think that in retrospect, people look back on the decision to go to war, how it was handled, but in particular the aftermath, as something which has ended up setting back Britain's standing in the world. So obviously politicians at the time, and it was, as I said, cross-party supported, everybody's going to be scrutinised for this. I think Matt's right. It would be better if we had the scrutiny now.
Matt, quick comment?
Yeah, Ed, I mean, I take your point about eroding trust in politics, and it's very good to hear you say that. It sounds like you agree with me that Chilcot should be published now. Would you commit to calling for an emergency debate in the Commons on doing
there's going to be one next Thursday.
I think that I'm the Shadow Chancellor. The Prime Minister of the country said today in the House of Commons he personally also wants this report to be published now, but I think part of the point, Matt, is that if you set up an independent commission, what independent commissions don't always do is jump to party political or even elected political timetables. And if Chilcot is saying he won't publish it before the election, it's not very easy for David Cameron to tell him otherwise. I think David Cameron would like to. I think he knows he can't and shouldn't. So there is a debate next week.
Okay.
But I don't think, unless Chilcot changes his mind, I don't think in our system the separation of powers and the independence of this report gives us any option.
Now, the Telegraph have got an interesting article today. They say you've repeatedly distanced yourself from New Labour, but you met Tony Blair during your trip to Washington last week. What? I'd love to have been a fly on the wall at that meeting.
Well, look, first of all, I was part of New Labour in coming into government in 1997.
But you had your issues. I mean, I've read various accounts of meetings between you and Tony Blair, which, if they're true, are very entertaining.
Well, look, we made the Bank of England independent and raised the national minimum wage because New Labour thought that you could be economically credible and fair.
We know all that. But what happened in your meeting with Tony Blair? Give us a little morsel.
I think for a fleeting second there, you're asking me kind of an intellectually interesting question about the nature of New Labour.
No, that'll come on later.
I've always been pleased to be part of New Labour, but we didn't get everything right, and I did disagree with Tony Blair about joining the Euro.
What happened at this meeting?
I was in Washington. Tony Blair was staying in a hotel a couple of doors down, as was somebody else who was there at the same time, and I knew Tony was there. So I popped in and had a chat with him, as I've done from time to time over the years. And, I'm afraid LBC exclusive. Here is the agenda of my meeting with Tony Blair is not going to happen this afternoon.
You didn't talk about the mansion tax?
No.
No?
No.
Chilcot?
No.
No? Tax rises? Ed Miliband's leadership?
As I said, I'm not going to announce the agenda of our meeting live on LBC, but we certainly did not talk about the Chilcot inquiry.
Was he generally happy with everything and how things were going? Because we keep reading reports that Tony Blair sort of makes some comments about Ed Miliband and then immediately sort of says, oh no, you've taken me out of context.
Well, look, I had seen Tony Blair a couple of months before he made those comments at Christmas in which he was worrying about the way in which the Conservatives on public spending were lurching to the right, moving to an extreme. This is even before the autumn statement, and urging us to win the general election. So when he said that that was where his heart and soul and passion was, I believed him, even though The Economist gave a slightly different spin.
So you're not going to tell me anything, are you?
No.
God. You're such a disappointment.
I'm really sorry.
Anyway, I've got 45 minutes to go to try and eke something out of Ed Balls on that, but you might have more success than me. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. This is LBC. It's 16 minutes past 5. Simon Conway has a news headline.
Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls has told LBC it's hugely frustrating the Chilcot inquiry into the Iraq War hasn't been published yet. He insists politicians are not behind the delay. New claims have been made of a sighting of murdered 8-year-old boy Vishal Mehrotra on the day he went missing in London in 1981. The RMT unions announced a 48-hour strike by workers on London's Docklands Light Railway next week in a row over terms and conditions. This is LBC. Your travel news is next.
At Sainsbury's, we're still hard at work lowering prices on the things that matter, like our 460-gram Sainsbury's British chicken breasts, our 240-gram Sainsbury's Scottish salmon fillets, and our 500-gram Sainsbury's 10% fat beef mince. And because these are lower regular prices, you can be assured of good value week after week. Sainsbury's, hard at work lowering prices.
See in store for price details. Prices vary in centrals and locals, selected stores and availability.
I'm Joanne Webb in the LBC Travel Centre. Well, to the east of London, there are massive disruptions because of the North Circular Road being closed northbound from the A12 to the M11 after an accident. The queue on the North Circ back from the Beckton roundabout, but all the surrounding routes are hardly moving at all. The A12 and the A13 are bad, but there are long delays around Leytonstone, Wanstead and Epping Forest. There's also been an accident on the Romford Road in Manor Park. It was already very busy because of the closure of the North Circular Road, so it's now causing chaos. And in Epping, the High Street's being closed both ways because of a separate accident. So there are long delays. Now, nearby on the M25 clockwise on the Hertfordshire stretch, it is very slow from junction 22 at London Coney to junction 26 at Waltham Abbey. It's because of an accident where two lanes are closed. And then on the southern stretch of the M25, on the Surrey stretch, it is very slow going anti-clockwise from junction 12 at the M3 to just after junction 10 at the A3 because a tanker's broken down on the exit slip road to the Cobham services. In Kent, the M20 remains closed coastbound at junction 8 at Leeds Castle because of Operation Stack. The delays go all the way back to junction 5 at the A20. And in Worcestershire, there are long delays on the M42 southbound to junction 1 at Bromsgrove after a car broke down earlier, but all the lanes have just reopened. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With Go-To Meeting. Work from home and avoid the tough commute.
Cook & Lewis Kitchens from B&Q with 3 years interest-free credit, 0% APR representative. The touch-sensitive taps, gemstone worktops and soft closed doors. tell you you're surrounded by quality. So with no deposit required and 3 years interest-free credit, you couldn't be closer to luxury. Extraordinary kitchens, B&Q prices.
0% APR representative credit subject to status, terms apply. See DIY.com for details. B&Q acts as a credit broker and works exclusively with Hitachi Personal Finance.
Our best ever winter sale is now on, with fantastic deals on selected phones, plans and accessories. Don't miss out. Visit vodafone.co.uk/sale or visit us in store today. Vodafone. Power to the savvy, power to you. Sale ends 2nd of February 2015. Terms apply. Pay monthly plans subject to credit check.
118434, the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 76 pence plus £1.53 per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary and mobiles cost considerably more.
If you need a full set of teeth replacing, now there's an alternative to the discomfort of dentures or the lengthy, painful treatment of traditional implants. I'm Dr. Michael Zibitz, dental specialist at TDC Implant Centre, and our award-winning new procedure could give you a full set of beautiful fixed teeth restored in just 1 day. Contact us now to find out more. See smileinaday.co.uk or call TDC Harley Street on 0203 7334 986.
Good day, sir. May I help you with your bags? Presidential suite, I assume.
Oh, no.
The King Executive, very good, sir.
No, actually,
Deluxe Executive, still exquisite.
No.
Which room are you in, then?
The conference room.
Oh.
I'm here for a meeting.
Look premium in the Passat GT from £249 per month. Take a test drive at your local retailer. The new Volkswagen Passat, as advanced as you are. Hire agreement for business users only. Price excludes VAT at 20% with a deposit payable.
Resolutions, they're tough to keep. But with B&Q this month, you can cross decorating the lounge off that list. Get 2 tints for £22 on Dulux 2.5 litre standard coloured emulsion. So that's one less to worry about. Unleash your resolution with B&Q. Offer ends 29th of Jan. Single price $17.92.
Leading Britain's conversation. Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Tomorrow morning from 7 on LBC.
21 minutes past 5. We have Ed Balls with us in the studio. If you want to watch us, I mean, why not? lbc.co.uk is where you go. We're on the front page. Follow the link. The camera's there, by the way. We have lots of calls coming in, but we'd like a few more. 0345 6060 973. No, don't move the camera because now you've probably ruined it. Assad is in Buckhurst Hill. Hello, Assad.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen.
Hello.
I'd basically like to ask Mr. Balls if he would be open to engaging in a live TV debate with the Chancellor.
Good question. Are you up for it?
Definitely. Absolutely. Bring it on, I say. I'd be very happy to have a debate with the Chancellor. And if LBC would host it, I'd be here like a shot. I'd love to do the LBC Chancellor's debates. My guess is that George Osborne... There's things that George Osborne and I disagree with about, but I think he's not a chicken. So I think he wouldn't chicken out. I think he'd come and do the LBC Chancellor debate.
So are you challenging George Osborne now to an election debate with you?
Look, it's important that broadcasters set the terms for these things. But if LBC invited me, I'd say yes.
Well, I'm inviting you right now to do at least an hour long, if not a 90-minute long debate with the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
I would very happily do a debate with George Osborne on LBC, chaired by Ian Dale, on this show, for as long as you want, any time, any place, anywhere. And I think he'd agree. Because, look, David Cameron seems to be a bit chicken about it, but I'm not sure George Osborne will be.
How do you get on with George Osborne on a personal level? Because in the House of Commons, there always seems to be a little bit of an enmity between you. But I've heard that actually on a personal level, you get on quite well.
Look, we have big disagreements, and I've disagreed with some of the big judgments he's made, and I also think some of the things he's done have been wrong, and on the wrong side of the moral line. I think very unfair. But he's also somebody I've known for many years. We've been at international conferences together in America, in France, and he's somebody that, you know, I can talk to. He's got young kids like me, and we got on okay. We're as friendly as you can be in politics.
And he's actually, I mean, I've known him for some time, and he's very different to his public image. And I would say you are very different to the public image that I think people had of you until maybe a few years ago. I said to someone fairly recently, I think you've introduced a sort of more human side to Ed Balls, which I don't think came across when you were in the cabinet. And I think he's kind of done the same. Do you think there's anything in that?
Well, look, we're all getting older, and maybe
you're not as old as me yet. But.
Well, and you've got to. I think what's happened with politics is that if people don't hear the real you and listen to you answer questions in a very open way and the best way you can, they're not really sure whether they understand where you're coming from, and they listen less. And so I think it's very important that we come on shows like this and just talk about anything with anybody, any question anybody comes along. I think that's why these debates are important.
Well, Assad, you've successfully got a very good answer there from Ed Balls. Who do you think would win a debate between George Osborne and Ed Balls?
Oh, well, I don't think I'll be in the position to really give a winner at this stage.
Oh, come on,
hang on. You just put Ed Balls on the spot. I'm putting you on the spot.
Why don't you come along and be the timekeeper, Assad? Ian can
honestly think
Ian can answer the questions and you can work out the timings.
Yeah. Mr. Balls, a major issue that you have really is to try to counter those critics that really say your credibility is at stake due to the fact that it was your party whilst in government that presided over the financial crash. I think that would be your main challenge. And I think for any chair who would be hosting any kind of debate, I think it would be really important for any chair to have a real good grasp of the statistics and the figures and the various reports that come out from various...
Well, let's just put that to Ed Balls, because there was you will have no doubt read this article in the Mail on Sunday this week that alleged that you and Ed Miliband foresaw the global crash in 2007. That's why you wanted to have an election then, because you could see the economy falling off a cliff.
I know, it's astonishing, isn't it? Quite how we managed to foresee the global financial crisis before pretty much any other journalist, economist, policymaker, including George Osborne. George Osborne is in that article criticising us for knowing and not telling anybody, where I think he's implicitly saying he didn't know himself. It's complete nonsense, Ian. It's total tosh.
This came from the former Labour Mayor of Doncaster, Martin Winter, who Ed Miliband stayed with when he first became an MP, or certainly the candidate. His wife corroborates it. I mean, why would he make it up?
Well, look, he's since left the Labour Party, and it looks like sold his story to the Mail on Sunday. I presume that's what's gone on here. I can tell you categorically, I wanted an early election. In none of those discussions was the issue of the economy central or even significant in the timing. That summer...
What was then? Why did you want the early election?
I thought that Gordon Brown had just become the Prime Minister, and I thought the right thing for him to do was to seek a mandate for what he wanted to do, and he should do that as early as possible. David Cameron was a long way behind in the opinion polls. The debate at the time was, do you want to have a novice, or do you want to have somebody with the experience to take the country forward? And I thought Gordon Brown should go and seek that public mandate. I thought it would be a good thing for him at the time. We'd had the instability in financial markets in August. We'd had the Northern Rock issue, but nobody had any sense at that time this was going to turn into a big global financial problem. All of the issues which happened with Lloyds and NatWest and Lehman's were 6, 12, 18 months ahead. So for the Mail on Sunday to put that on the front page and claim that somehow I knew, and for George Osborne to now decide that this was a bad thing, I mean, if I knew, why didn't George Osborne know? Well, he didn't know either, and which is why he'd committed to match our spending plans, if I remember.
Right, let's move on. Jonathan is in Woodford Green. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, how you doing? You all right?
Hi, Jonathan.
Go ahead, what's your question?
It's about the mansion tax. I mean, do you agree with Lord Mandelson that the Labour version of the mansion tax is a crude policy and that it's actually causing a split in the party?
I mean, he said it was a crude policy and short-termist.
I think, no, I don't agree with Peter. And I think Peter's now looked at the detail of what I've been saying yesterday and in recent weeks. And I think he's seeing that we've thought hard about some of the issues he's raised.
Have you spoken to him about it?
I've actually not spoken to him, but since yesterday morning. But, I use modern technology, Ian. And so we've been...
how many four-letter words were in that email?
None, actually. None at all. Okay. But we texted a couple of times just to for him to know where we were and what I was going to say on the World at One. And the reality is, Peter supports a tax on high-value properties. He wants it to be banded. He wants to make sure we get the details right. And I think he's right to support a tax on high-value properties. We'll introduce one.
But
it will be banded.
But he supports the Liberal Democrat policy of having extra council tax bans.
Well, I actually think when we looked into this yesterday, what we discovered is the only difference between us and the Liberal Democrats is we've committed all the money we raise from the mansion tax will go to the National Health Service to deal with the crisis and have more doctors and nurses. In fact, the Liberal Democrat policy, and look, as a student of these things, I'm sure you've dug beneath the headlines. The Liberal Democrat policy is the same as ours. They're not proposing doing this through the council tax. They're actually doing it, I believe, by extending the envelope properties tax, as I propose. They want some additional higher bands. So do I. Yesterday, what we discovered is our policy and the Liberal Democrat policy is the same, except for the money will go to the NHS from us.
That'll be news to them. What was it? I'm
not sure, actually, because they could have come out yesterday and explained that wasn't the case, and they didn't.
Was it a helpful intervention from Lord Mandelson?
I think it was helpful. I'm not saying if it was intended so, but it was helpful in allowing me to therefore go on the World at One and explain in detail our policy, which is a very popular policy.
Is it?
A very popular policy across the country, including here in London, but across the country, and necessary because people want to know that we're going to fund the NHS properly. We're now the only party in British politics which is promising to fund the NHS with additional money and saying where the money will come from. You don't get that from the Tories.
OK, well, more from Ed Balls for the next half an hour. 0345 6060 973 if you'd like to put your question to him. I'm Ian Dale at Drive, LBC News Time. It's 5:30. Simon Conway has the news headlines.
The Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls has challenged George Osborne to a pre-election debate on LBC about the state of the economy.
Absolutely, bring it on, I say. I'd be very happy to have a debate with the Chancellor, and if LBC would host it, I'd be here like a shot.
Ed Balls says he doesn't think George Osborne would chicken out of a debate. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair has insisted he is not the reason the findings of the Iraq war inquiry have been delayed until after the election. Its chairman, Sir John Chilcot, says those boy on the day he went missing in London in 1981. The father of Vishal Mehrotra says his son was kidnapped and killed by a Westminster paedophile ring. The RMT union has announced a 48-hour strike by workers on the Docklands Light Railway in London. Staff are due to walk out next Wednesday morning in a row over terms and conditions. LBC weather, light rain or sleet this evening for London and the southeast should die away by midnight. Lows of -2 Celsius, becoming mostly dry but cloudy by later tonight across the UK, but a few mist and freezing fog patches are likely. Tomorrow becoming dry and cloudy but cold, highs of 5 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
I'm Joanne Webb in the LBC Travel Centre. Long delays in East London with the North Circular Road still being closed northbound from the A12 to the M11 junction after an accident. The road still needs to be resurfaced, so that's why it's closed. The queue back to the Beckton roundabout, but all the surrounding routes like the A12 and the A13 are much busier than usual. The A12 out of London is slow from the Bow interchange. There's also been an accident in the sort of chaos of East London in Epping and also in Manor Park. The High Street in Epping's closed and Romford Road in Manor Park's restricted after a separate accident. On the M25 on the Hertfordshire stretch, it's hardly moving at all clockwise from junction 22 at London Colney to junction 26 at Waltham Abbey, and 2 lanes are still closed. On the M25 anti-clockwise, it's slow from junction 14 at Heathrow to just after junction 10 at the Wisley interchange at the A3, and that's because a tank has broken down on the exit slip road to the Cobham services. The long delays continue in Kent because the M20 is still closed for Operation Stag. It's closed heading towards the coast at junction 8 at Leeds Castle. The delays go all the way back to junction 5 at the A20. Keeping you moving, your next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Work smarter with a free 30-day trial.
The most important global issues of our time. Confronted by BAFTA award-winning documentary maker Ross Kemp in Sky One's Extreme World.
You have to have a fascination with people and with what's going on in the world. We have an uncanny knack of being in the wrong place at the right time. We go to very different places and we cover very different subjects.
Find out more and win Sky free for a year at lbc.co.uk. Extreme World starts tomorrow night at 9 on Sky One.
In business, it's important to be smart, especially when it comes to energy. That's why you should choose npower Business. We're doing lots of things to make energy work better for small and medium-sized businesses like yours. We're offering a choice of a fixed or variable plan, We're installing smarter metering for accurate billing to help with your budgeting. And we're resolving telephone queries quick-smart with 90% of customer service calls now answered within 1 minute. After all, time is money, so don't waste yours. Visit empower.com/smart today. Simple and clear, the way energy should be.
If you feel so self-conscious about your teeth that it stops you smiling in public or eating causes you pain, it could all be different in just a day. I'm Dr. Michael Zibitz, dental specialist at TDC Implant Centre. Our award-winning treatment could give you a full set of beautiful fixed teeth restored in just 1 day. A quicker, less painful alternative to traditional implants. So see smileinaday.co.uk or call TDC Harley Street on 0203 7334 986.
Our best ever winter sale is now on, with fantastic deals on selected phones, plans and accessories. Don't miss out. Visit vodafone.co.uk/sale or visit us in store today. Vodafone. Power to the savvy, power to you. Sale ends 2nd of February 2015. Terms apply. Pay monthly plans subject to credit check.
Hit the snooze button, will you, love? Snowstorms, sleet, black ice, the coldest winter on record? When weathermen forecast more treacherous conditions, I forecast an extra hour in bed.
Trying to commute in treacherous conditions gets you nowhere, but holding online meetings to work from home using Citrix GoToMeeting can take you anywhere. Save time, money, and keep warm. Start your free 30-day trial now. Visit gotomeeting.co.uk.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
25 to 6 here on LBC. LBC.co.uk is where you need to go to watch Ed Balls and I taking your calls. We have got lots of calls on the board. We'll come to those in just a second, but I do want to clear up something first. It's very important, this. I read somewhere the other day that you had been spotted abusing a car driver while on your bike in Stoke Newington. Is there any truth to this scurrilous rumour?
I think I was just trying to avoid an incident rather than abusing the driver. I was on a bike on Sunday going down Church Street in Stoke Newington, just been out to the butcher's and was driving along on my bike, and there was a car in front of me which was indicating to turn right. So I was going past the car, by the pavement, and the driver obviously got frustrated and suddenly decided to drop his right-hand signal and take off as I was going past, and he almost knocked me off, and I think I said oi.
Just oi.
In a very sort of Norfolk way, oi.
Oi.
In fact, I said oi. I said oi, oi, oi. What are you doing? But anyway, he stopped and I cycled on and it was all fine. So we avoided an incident. It was in the Standard Diary.
It was, and
they said I was wearing brown corduroy.
They were praising you. They said you look better than you normally do.
I've never worn brown corduroy trousers in my life. Who do they think I am? Some kind of
Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage? Absolutely no way. I'm not that type. I'm not a brown corduroy type. I'll leave that to the landed gentry.
Okay. Sam is in Nottingham. Sam, bring us back to earth. What would you like to ask?
Hi there. I'm very interested in what impact the SNP could make on British politics in the next Parliament, but both Ed Miliband and Harriet Harman have dodged answering questions regarding a possible Labour-SNP coalition. There are many serious policy areas that will be affected by the outcome of this. Can we have a definitive answer once and for all? Will Labour or will Labour not go into coalition with the SNP if it gave you the numbers to form a government?
Well, of course, just before you answer that, there's an interesting poll out this afternoon which puts the SNP at 52% in Scotland and Labour at 24%. Now, a lot of people are predicting that at the election, the SNP could get 30 or 40 seats. I personally can't see how they can do that. I think they will gain some, but not that many. But if they did, of course, it would really knock your hopes of getting a majority.
It's a big thing which has happened since the referendum. I was up in Aberdeen yesterday with our new leader, Jim Murphy, who's making a real impact. And the debate was about who's doing acting to support jobs in Aberdeen and the oil industry with the fall in the oil price. Yeah. And the SNP seem to be sitting on their hands, and it's Labour leading the debate. And we've got to show people in the coming weeks, if you care about jobs and investment, then you need to vote Labour. And people don't want to have David Cameron back. And so we're going to work hard to narrow that poll position and to win as many seats back for Labour as we can. No is the answer to Sam. I'm not planning on any coalition with the
But would
the
you
SNP.
rule it out?
I think that's something which in the end you leave to leaders of parties to do. But I don't think it's on anybody's agenda. I don't think anybody wants it, is planning on it. I don't think it will happen. I don't expect it to happen. I'm not going to make some sort of categorical announcement today because that's not my place. But I've got as close to saying no without saying no.
Let me put something else to you, because I think virtually every political pundit and commentator believes that there is going to be some sort of hung parliament. Now, clearly, every politician is working at an election to gain an outright majority. We take that as read. Do you think, though, the electorate has a right to know that in the event of a hung parliament, there are certain red lines that a particular party won't cross in any coalition negotiations?
I think that a lot of the frustration last time round, when people weren't thinking hard about coalitions, was that people made promises and manifestos and they just totally broke them. So the Liberal Democrats said we'll abolish tuition fees and then put them up. And I think this time round, the parties, having learned from 2010, will think very hard about what goes into their manifestos. And everybody knows that coalitions are more unpopular and breaking your promises goes down very badly with the electorate. So I'm not planning on fighting in a manifesto where I'm thinking, well, which are the promises I'm going to keep and which are the ones I want to be relaxed about breaking. I don't think that's the way to do it anymore.
In any coalition talks, there has to be a degree of compromise. I mean, it just goes with the territory. So, I mean, with the Liberal Democrats, they would no doubt say, well, if we are to support Ed Balls as Chancellor doing this, that and the other, we demand, without any referendum, a new law on electoral reform. I mean, there has to be a certain amount of dealing, doesn't there?
And that's what they did last time, and it didn't work out very well for Nick Clegg in the end, his demand from David Cameron for support on electoral reform. I think part of the problem here is that our politics doesn't really kind of find this very, very easy. If you go to other European countries where they're used to fighting on a manifesto and then spending 2 months totally renegotiating, or in
Belgium, 9 months.
Oh yeah, but it's now in the end. You have to make compromises if you're to make a formal agreement, a coalition. I think that's probably why it's much less likely to happen next time round, for precisely the point you said about people not wanting to break promises.
So you think actually a minority government might be the outcome if there is no overall majority? A minority government might be more likely outcome than a coalition.
Well, let's wait and see. But back in 2010, there's two things you could say. The idea of a coalition was popular, and the idea of Nick Clegg and the Liberal Democrats was popular. 5 years on, the idea of a coalition is very unpopular, and Nick Clegg is even more unpopular. So it sounds
to me that the idea of a coalition isn't very popular with you.
Well, look, David Cameron signed up with a coalition because he thought that was going to be easier for him than dealing with the Tory party, and maybe you'll think the same thing will be true next time round. But okay, I'm fighting for a Labour majority, as you'd expect me to say.
Sam, I don't know who you vote for, but do you think that SNP Labour coalition is at all likely after that answer?
Well, in fairness, I think Ed Balls once again dodged the question. And, what I want is an answer for once and for all. Are the Labour Party going to do a deal with a political party that just a few short months ago were trying to tear our nations apart and abolish the United Kingdom? I think the electorate are entitled to know whether or not the Labour Party are prepared to sell out the United Kingdom for electoral power.
Well, I will do nothing to sell out the United Kingdom for electoral power, including, by the way, playing short-term petty party politics over English votes for English laws. I'll leave that to David Cameron and George Osborne. The idea that we'd go into coalition on an agreement with the SNP, where we know what they would be asking us to do is agree to take steps towards a break up the United Kingdom, the answer to that is in no way.
What do you think about the comments that Nicola Sturgeon has made today? She's basically said her MPs will vote on English health matters if it helps to protect the Scottish NHS, which is quite a volte-face for her because SNP MPs don't normally vote on English matters.
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure I've thought too hard about the complexities of how Nicola Sturgeon's MPs vote on what issues. I'm more bothered about how Labour MPs will vote, and Labour MPs will vote on UK matters. They'll vote, and if a matter under any new arrangements we reach on through a constitutional process meant there were certain votes where they didn't, then they wouldn't. But I mean, it's a UK Parliament, and there's UK votes, and that's what they should do.
So Labour MPs can vote on English NHS matters.
It's because we're not a separatist party, and we believe in the United Kingdom and the role that Westminster plays within that. Now, the reason why Nicola Sturgeon is saying that is because what she wants to do is provoke a debate which separates Britain. And the reason why David Cameron and George Osborne are saying English votes for English laws is because they want to play the same kind of short-term divisive politics. And I'm not going to get involved in that. I support devolution to Scotland and the role of Holyrood, the Scottish Parliament, but the UK Parliament is a UK Parliament, and in the main, it should be voting on UK matters.
Let's get a quick call from Spencer in Ilford. Hello, Spencer. What's your question to Ed Balls?
Hi, Spencer.
Good evening, Ian. Good evening, Mr. Balls. Do you think it was wrong of Obama to cozy up with David Cameron as he did?
No, I don't think it was wrong of him, because he's the President of America and the British Prime Minister had come over for a visit. I was there on the same day, and so I went into the US Treasury to meet the Treasury Secretary, the head of the Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, and I also went to the White House for a meeting with the head of the National Economic Council, and they gave me coffee and biscuits in the same way as David Cameron had it. So,
But did they endorse your economic policy in the way that Obama endorsed Cameron's?
The interesting thing is that President Obama has just made a State of the Union speech in which he said he wants to raise taxes on the highest earners in order to try and deliver better outcomes for working people. It sounds like President Obama is endorsing the Labour Party manifesto rather than the David Cameron one, doesn't it? I think he was just being a diplomatic.
When you put it like that, it does. But Harriet Harman sat here 2 days ago and said that President Obama was wrong to do that.
I think that if some people, through the lens of the British lobby, might have thought that's what David Cameron was doing, then they could be President Obama was doing, then they could have taken that view. But I think, in fact,
well, he did. I heard him say it. He said both of our economic policies are working, so we must be doing something right. That's a pretty firm endorsement, isn't it?
I think President Obama knows there's a big squeeze on the living standards of working people, and in America, and that's got to change. And he's proposing, some big changes, including tax rises at the top. I was there publishing our Commission on Inclusive Prosperity, which I've done co-chaired with his former National Economic Council advisor, which says the sort of trickle-down Cameron plan is not working and we need to have a more inclusive prosperity. And I found Democrats, including in the Obama White House, were embracing our view of the world rather than the Tory view of the world.
Well, either President Obama was wrong or Harriet Harman was wrong. They can't both be right.
I think that President Obama was being diplomatic.
You're being diplomatic about Harriet Harman, then?
I think that Harriet Harman was right to say that President Obama does not think Tory economic policy is working in Britain because he wants to change things in America in the way which we propose, which is the opposite of what David Cameron proposes. How about that?
Okay, more from you.
That was either.
You're learning this politician bit, aren't you? Really? 03, you'll be Foreign Secretary next. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Ed Balls is with me until 6 o'clock, so plenty of time to get your question in. This is LBC. It's 5:46. Simon Conway has the news headlines.
The Prime Minister's told LBC he's sure the findings of the Chilcot inquiry into the Iraq War will be published before the end of 2015. The Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls has challenged George Osborne to a pre-election debate on LBC about the state of the economy, and workers on London's Docklands Light Railway are to go on strike for 48 hours from next Wednesday in a row over terms and conditions. This is LBC. Your travel news is next.
The snow brings out the kid in me. Thing is, I'm not a kid anymore. My kids aren't even kids anymore. But I just can't resist the snowball fight. I'm not as quick as I used to be, so I end up covered in snow and desperate for a lovely hot bowl of Heinz tomato soup. That's the bit I really look forward to. And actually, that bowl counts as one of your 5 a day. Only tomato soup can help me recover from a snowball fight. And it absolutely has to be Heinz.
I'm Joanne Webb. In the LBC Travel Centre, the North Circular Road is closed northbound from the A12 to the M11. So this is in East London. It's after an accident. The road needs to be resurfaced. It's causing absolute chaos through the area. All the surrounding routes are just hardly moving at all. The A12 and the A13 especially bad, but also long delays around Leytonstone, Wanstead, Barking, Snaresbrook and Epping Forest. Elsewhere on the Hertfordshire stretch of the M25, very slow from junction 22 at London Coney to 26 at Waltham Abbey because a lorry's broken down and there's also been an accident as well, so various restrictions are still in place. Also on the M25 on the Surrey stretch, it's slow anti-clockwise from junction 14 at Heathrow all the way to Cobham Services, which is just after junction 10 at the A3. It's because a tanker's broken down on the exit slip road, but there are restrictions on the main carriageway. In Kent, there are long delays on the M20 heading towards the coast because Operation Stack is in place, so it's closed at junction 8 at Leeds Castle. There are delays back to junction 5 at the A20, and in Shropshire it's slow on the M54 eastbound to junction 4 at the A464 after a tanker broke down earlier. Keeping you moving, your next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With Go-To Meeting. Work from home and avoid the tough commute.
118434, the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 76 pence plus £1.53 per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary and mobiles cost considerably more.
When patients come to us for help, many of them have been living with painful, disfigured teeth for years. But our treatment could give you a full set of beautiful fixed teeth restored in just a matter of hours. I'm Dr. Michael Zibitz from TDC Implant Centre, and our new innovative procedure could help you even if your regular dentist has told you nothing can be done. So see smileinaday.co.uk or call TDC Harley Street on 0203 7334 986.
Resolutions, they're tough to keep. But with B&Q this month, you can cross decorating the lounge off that list. Get 2 tins for £22 on Dulux 2.5 litre standard coloured emulsion. So that's one less to worry about. Unleash your resolution with B&Q. Offer ends 29th of Jan. Single price $17.92.
Guys, I can't get the presentation up on the big screen.
Are you connected to the network?
Have you got the HDMI cable in?
Do you have the screen share passcode?
Have you got the new code for it? Wait, there's a new code?
Let's get Doug from IT.
Please don't. Doug hates me.
Meetings don't have to be a nightmare. Choose Join Me and make your meetings simpler, faster and more efficient online. Start your free trial today at join.me.
In business, it's important to be smart, especially when it comes to energy. That's why you should choose npower Business. We're doing lots of things to make energy work better for small and medium-sized businesses like yours. We're offering a choice of a fixed or variable plan. We're installing smarter metering for accurate billing to help with your budgeting. And we're resolving telephone queries quick smart with 90% of customer service calls now answered within 1 minute. After all, time is money, so don't waste yours. Visit npower.com/smart today. Simple and clear, the way energy should be.
Good day, sir. May I help you with your bags? Presidential suite, I assume.
Oh, no.
The King Executive, very good, sir.
No, actually,
Deluxe Executive, still exquisite.
No.
Which room are you in, then?
The conference room.
Oh.
I'm here for a meeting.
Look premium in the Passat GT from £249 per month. Take a test drive at your local retailer. The new Volkswagen Passat, as advanced as you are. Hire agreement for business users only. Price excludes VAT at 20% with a deposit payable.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
9 minutes to 6 here on LBC. You're listening to Ian Dale at Drive with Ed Balls here for another edition of Cool Balls. 0345 6060 973. And you can watch us via the LBC website at lbc.co.uk. Let's go to Steve, who's in Bristol. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Ian. Hello, Mr. Balls.
Hi there, Steve. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Just want your thoughts on this. Given the recent surge of a few thousand members of the Green Party, are you considering that maybe the Greens are going to be Labour's UKIP?
I think it's more complicated than that, Steve, because the reality is that protest parties tend to take votes from all sides of the political spectrum. So UKIP have taken votes predominantly from the Tories, but also from Labour. I think probably the Green Party will be taking some Tory votes and some Liberal Democrat votes as well. In the end, if you're voting to protest, you could be coming from anywhere. If you actually want a Green government, well, David Cameron's totally failed to deliver his Green promises, so it's only a Labour government will actually make sure that those Green policies come through, at least the Green policies I would support. I don't support all of them.
What is it that just before Christmas, Labour created an anti-Green Party task force headed up by Sadiq Khan, and within a few weeks, the Greens are topping 10% in the opinion polls. Sadiq's got some questions to answer, hasn't he?
I think that on climate change, we're probably, the greenest mainstream party, and the Greens will probably agree with us.
That's not what I asked.
On growth, probably, I think the Green policies are not sensible. What's an anti-Green party? What colour would that be?
Well, I don't know if there's an anti-Green party, but clearly it ought to worry Labour, just as UKIP ought to worry Labour. Look, Steve lives in Bristol. Bristol West is a Liberal Democrat seat with an 11,000 majority, which ought to go Labour at the next election, because they won it basically because of the student vote. Now, let's assume students have deserted for the Liberal Democrats for all the reasons we know. In Bristol, the Greens are very popular. They could deny you that seat and it could stay Liberal Democrat.
I think that the question that people should ask, take down in Brighton, is poll people in Brighton about what it's like to actually have a Green local government leadership, because I think at the moment it's been pretty unpopular and strikes and mess and chaos. Of course, there are some constituencies where the Greens will always do better, but in Norwich South, do the Green voters there, do they look back with pleasure on the fact that they put a Liberal Democrat in to that seat? I'm not sure. I think that maybe they won't make that mistake a second time.
Isn't it sad that we know all these details about these seats? Steve, what do you think will happen, particularly in that seat that I mentioned, Bristol West?
I think it might be close, actually. I really do. I think Labour could lose it. I mean, the thing is that it's. What I'm just wondering is, I keep hearing. It's always interesting to hear what we call the mainstream parties. I'll use that in inverted brackets. But, Mr. Balls, you keep saying protest vote. You are hemorrhaging members, same as Conservative is also hemorrhaging massively membership of your parties. These parties are growing. I think the question, rather than actually dismissing it as a protest vote, what you should be addressing the fact is that you are hemorrhaging membership and, of course, funds. I mean, you seem to be very dismissive by just using the word protest vote. I'm just wondering, this election could turn out to be an extremely interesting one. I mean, looking at UKIP as well as the Greens. Sure. But it seems to me that the mainstream parties are you're still focused to say, you don't want to vote for them, it's a waste vote, it's a protest vote. And what you're doing is you are driving people.
OK, look, we're running out of time,
I understand Steve. That, but in the end, the choice of the next election is going to be, do you want David Cameron to be Prime Minister or Ed Miliband? And in that seat, a vote for the Greens is going to get the Tories in. And I think it's sensible for me to remind people what, in the end, their choice is going to deliver. I'm not dismissing the reasons why people are protesting, but people aren't voting Green to get a Green Prime Minister. That's not going to happen in the next election or in my lifetime, I would guess. But do you want to vote Green and get the Tories, really? OK,
let's go to Zara in Chelsea. Hello, Zara.
Hi. Good evening.
Hello, what's your question?
Zara.
Hello there. My question is, do you think we need to do more than to ban page 3 to reduce the objectification of women in the media? For example, for men to grow up taking women seriously in business and politics, do you think that those should be relegated to online and the inside pages of top shelf magazines rather than somewhere that, is just blatant, exploitation of the human female form?
OK.
Well, Zara, I've got a 15-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old daughter, and what I want them to do is grow up and believe that they can achieve anything in life based on their talents and their abilities, and they're not going to be stereotyped or put in a box because of their gender. I'm really pleased that page 3 is no more, it seems, because we didn't have the sun in our house for our kids to see, because I didn't like that page 3. I thought it was a terrible image to portray about young women growing up, and but it's one small thing which needs to be done, and there's a lot more. We haven't got enough women in Parliament, in our civil service, in British boardrooms. As my daughter was saying to me the other day, is women's football on TV like men's football? Well, not yet.
It's much slower, isn't it?
It's good.
I didn't say it wasn't good.
It's fast.
Be
careful, honestly. Women's football's great, honestly.
Okay.
Talk it up.
Right, let's. I'm going to play you something now. David Cameron has been speaking to our sister station, Capital Extra, where he was asked where he would take the G7 for lunch: Harvester, a Gordon Ramsay restaurant, or Nando's. Here's his answer.
Having been to, I've been to a Gordon Ramsay restaurant, I've been to Nando's, and I've been to a Harvester. I think Nando's is the best value for money. I had a very good Nando's in Bristol.
Well, he's a Nando's man. What about you?
Our kids like Nando's. I've not been a regular at Harvesters. I've got to say, John's Fish and Chips on Airedale in Castleford, just near where we live, is absolutely brilliant. I'm not sure the G7 would think much of it because fish and chips is all cooked in beef dripping, but you can't have it too often. Absolutely fabulous. I think if I was choosing my favourite restaurant other than that, I think probably... I do like Little Chef.
I'm totally with you.
I know. Unfortunately, I was going to say that Little Chef is, unlike Harvester or Nando's, is actually a British firm. It turns out that Little Chef's owned by Kuwaiti conglomerate, which is a bit of a blow.
What do you order when you're at a Little Chef?
The Olympic breakfast. And the fried potatoes are just brilliant.
But you see, you have been on a fitness kick over the last couple of years. I'm embarking on a fitness kick at the moment. I've actually been running, believe it or not. Yeah. Don't laugh at that. So I'm afraid my visits to Little Chef will have to be few and far between. But you're still obviously a frequent customer.
Well, I think you shouldn't go too often. But it's one of the few things that I share in common with John Major, an enjoyment for Little Chef, because I think wasn't he a big fan of Little Chef, or was a happy eater,
particularly the peas.
The only thing to be careful of with this running, Ian, is I found that when I did running, I've done the last 3 marathons in London, that I didn't lose any weight, but in a labour way.
Why is that?
Well, because instead you just get redistribution.
What's the point then?
It moves from your stomach to your legs. Now, I don't know whether. Is redistribution the road you want to take?
No, I want to just get thinner.
No, I think if you want to get thinner, you've got to eat less.
On that happy note, Ed Balls,
I'm afraid.
Thank you very
That's my
much.
experience.
We look forward to seeing you again next month. Enjoy the next few weeks campaigning. We'll look forward to seeing you.
And maybe with George Osborne.
You never know.
We'll have to change the name. We can't call it Cool Balls if it's George Osborne.
No, we really can't. We'll think up a suitable title. Ed Balls, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Now, coming up after 6, we're going to be talking about further. I can't believe I'm even asking you this. There are going to be further cuts in the British Armed Forces, according to Sir Nicholas Harvey, the Liberal Democrat MP and former Armed Services Minister. He has seen papers in the MOD where they say they intend to reduce the size of the British Army, wait for it, not from 100,000 to 82,000, but to 60,000. Now, I think that's an absolute disgrace. Surely that ought to be one of the key themes of the next election.
On FM, online, on your mobile, and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 6 o'clock, the Shadow Chancellors insisted on LBC Labour would rather the Iraq War inquiry's findings are published before the election than afterwards. The inquiry's chairman, Sir John Chilcot, says it won't come out before May, as those criticising